This is Limited Hip Flexion by Lindsay Newman, starring Caitlin Gray. Limited hip flexion occurs due to the inability of an individual to contract the hip flexor muscles in gait and other daily activities such as walking upstairs and running on a treadmill. Weakness in three major muscles, the psoas major, the psoas minor, and the iliacus, can all play a role in limited hip flexion of an individual. Before we take a look at how these muscles play into limited hip flexion, there are a couple other things to keep in mind when watching the video. The lower extremity works as a kinetic chain with the hip, knee, ankle, and feet playing a major role in gait. Throughout the kinetic chain, when there is an issue in one of these pieces, there's often an issue in the rest following the chain. So as we start out looking at the hip, there's a decreased range of flexion due to the weak hip flexors. The decreased range of motion due to limited hip flexion also affects down the kinetic chain, which is evident when you look at her stride length. She's taking very short, choppy steps, and she is unable to get her feet off the ground due to this limited range of motion all the way back up the chain in her hip. When looking at Caitlin's gait from a frontal view, you can see that she is almost waddling. This is because she is unable to flex her hip, so she has no other option but to swing her hip out to stride. Along with the waddling motion in Caitlin's gait, she's also forced into limited knee flexion due to the lack of motion of her hip joint. So to sum it up, it's one kinetic chain and one big cycle.